Shalom, family, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's weekly news update. And I pray you all can hear me fine out there. Somebody give me a 5x5. And while we're letting everyone come in the room, just wanted to share this with you folks. Just as we started the broadcast today,
Here comes the
it just
rain.
began to rain. And so right now I'm listening, and the rain is hitting the top of the building, and we're always grateful when we get the rain. Now, we mentioned the rain here because when we came here, we were receiving, they were receiving approximately 2 inches of rain per year. That was it. So it was pretty drought conditions. It was pretty bad. And that was for something like 10 years straight. So it was not like a 1 year thing. So it was pretty gnarly. And since Sukkot of the last Sukkot that just passed, we keep track following Sukkot, and we're already at approximately 6 inches going into, and we're getting rain every day now. We're going to get rain continuously because Elohim brings rain in his season. In fact, I remember praying for rain at a different time, and he spoke back to me and said, in its season. And I so learned to just be patient, and sure enough, it would show up. So that's why we mentioned the rain out here, and that's, I know everybody gets rain everywhere, right? And you're like, what's the big deal? We get rain all the time. What are you talking about? Not here. Here it's a big deal. Here it is a sign of Elohim's provision and his blessing upon this Isaiah 35 desert blooming moment here. So it's kind of cool to be here to see that. It's wonderful to be able to give testimony to that. You hear the thunder coming in. And so bless the living Elohim. We've got a lot to cover. And for those of you joining us for the first time, maybe you don't know this. I don't know how you don't, but we have a website called Remnant Watch, where we're going to post all the stories that we cover every week. And so not only the ones that we're going to be covering today, but also the ones that we've covered in previous weekly updates. And you'll also notice that this, if you click on it, will take you to the very latest broadcast that we've done. And one of the things that we like to say around here, right, guys, we always want to be informed, but we don't want to be overwhelmed. And this is a really important thing to share with our brothers and sisters out there, because one of the efforts that's going on, that is a big effort out there, is to bring you into a place of anxiety, to weaken your ability to make good, rational decisions, and to put you in a state of fear where you will make more impulsive decisions, and you will not know that you have crossed bad lines before it's too late. So this is a common tactic used by those who enjoy conflict and chaos and take advantage of that chaos. Think of like lions hunting, and they scatter a herd so they can find any weaker stragglers, and then they attack those. So you just have to understand that this is varying levels of warfare that we're observing right now in the earth, and it's important for us to be aware. And on that note, let's get into the news. And tonight's top story leading our review is a very serious story developing, of course, in the nation of Yasharel, in the nation of Israel. And this is a very ominous sign. We continue to see the confirmation of the word that we received from Messiah, where he told us that there would be war and rumors of war, and to not allow it to trouble us, right? So that's an important thing that we need to remember. And of course, we knew that they were stoking this war on the northern border at the same time that they were doing their action in Gaza. So we're not surprised by this action, but it is interesting to watch this unfold real time, as you know, we saw this coming. So those of you that had eyes open, you saw how this was developing. Israel's prime minister and president toured northern Israel's border and met with military commanders there Wednesday amid escalating tensions with Hezbollah forces in Lebanon and mounting concerns from world leaders that a wider war could break out. And And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu posted a video online during his visit of him saying Israeli forces were determined and committed to the mission of achieving victory and no less. And listen, this is not boding well because, again, as you all know, there are forces desperately trying to take the world into full-on conflagration or full-out war. And we're seeing every effort. It would appear we're seeing every effort to bring us to that place. And just as the scriptures prophesied in the book of Revelation that all peace would be taken from the earth, we're watching that, folks. We're also watching green grass be burned up. I saw a report out of Florida where a farmer who normally rotates his cattle between pastures was reporting that his entire pasture area is sand and dust. There was no growth. They had moisture, but something is wrong. And so the grass is not growing where it normally would grow. This is a very troubling and disturbing development. Now, getting back into this theater of operations here, Turkey's Erdogan is warning Israel against the Lebanon war, and it calls Netanyahu mentally ill. That's not good, folks. When you start seeing personal jabs like this is when these things stoke up quick. The Turkish president comments have reignited the war of words between Turkey and Israel. Turkish President Recep Erdogan on Wednesday said Israel has set its eyes on Lebanon as he accused some Western powers of supporting the Israeli government's plan to expand the war in Gaza. Israel, which devastated Gaza, is now setting its sights on Lebanon, as we see, Erdogan said in a televised address to his fellow party members in the Turkish parliament. We see that while Western powers speak differently on camera, behind the scenes, they are patting Israel on the back and even supporting it. So you're seeing a very, very different tone coming forth. The things that we were watching as we, from our last update, we saw Israel was preparing troops for potential escalation. Now they're basically openly declaring that they're intending on going to war in northern Israel. And again, folks, part of the reason why I believe we're seeing this is we're seeing a bit of wag the dog, and we're also seeing a bit of desperation. Those, again, that are being held personally responsible and personally liable, well, they have a vested interest in keeping the status quo of a state of war continuing, and it almost seems as if it's a hope that we'll all forget previous era crimes and previous era things for sake of the grief and new crimes and new issues that come up. So it does appear that we as a world, as the earth, are being manipulated to look this way while others are and thankfully while very few are paying attention to the right things, and thankfully there are those that are staying kind of on the ball, and that's why I believe we're seeing some of these maneuvers. So remember that this is hanging over the prime minister of Israel's head. So I'm pretty sure he doesn't want to go back to status quo too soon. Gaza crimes, Netanyahu fears potential international criminal court arrest warrants by July 24th. Kind of hard to arrest him if he's in the middle of a war, right? So there's, to me, my antennas are going up a little bit going, are we trying to avoid accountability? Are we escalating things? And again, not to say that there aren't legitimate threats and legitimate issues, but again, we look at things from the 10,000 foot view. And of course, these prosecutors are coming hard for individuals. So they're not prosecuting the whole nation of Israel. They're coming for the individuals who gave the orders for certain things. So this is an interesting change of tactic that we've been watching here on our reports now for like a year. We've been watching this stoke up of a different tactic, and Iran's been using this very same tactic. So it's not gone quite the way that I think they thought it would go. I think they thought we'd be at full-on shooting by now, and that's not exactly going on. And as a matter of fact, What cool heads are doing is they're making preparations for the post-Western world, like the world after the Western powers are no longer running things. They're making preparations and agreements and standing by for a shift as I think is inbound. And take a look at this: Moscow expects to sign a new cooperation pact with Iran in the very near future. So now, just like NATO is nuzzling up to Ukraine, well, Moscow is nuzzling up to Iran, right? So you can see how these things are playing out as these chess moves sort of play out. Moscow expects to sign a new agreement on comprehensive cooperation with Iran in the very near future. Deputy Russian Foreign Minister Andrei Rodenko told Russia's RIA state news agency in an interview published on Tuesday. So they're already letting the world know that they plan to align themselves with Iran, which means any attack on that ally would then trigger again a greater war. So you see how this is all being set up as if we're not watching this chess match, as if no one's paying attention. And maybe they aren't, because maybe they're so distracted by social nonsense that they're not seeing these things. But you folks, you, the remnant, have your eyes wide open and you can see these things approaching as we should see them, so we can sound warning. And the UN is, speaking of warning of catastrophic threat to the region. So they're concerned about the greater region exploding into chaos if Hezbollah fighting escalates, which I think is a reasonable concern. Russian envoy says Security Council's U.S.-backed Gaza ceasefire resolution now dead letter that included blatant lie that Israel had accepted the deal. So they keep doing this, by the way. They keep pretending they already have a deal done and they don't. The head of the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization warns of extreme risk of famine in Gaza as more than 20% of people go entire days and nights without eating. So I think that was the plan, and I think we already saw that in the Holodomor. We saw that same type of tactic used against entire people groups in previous conflicts. So this is not a new tactic. This is a use of an old method of conquering people. The UN on Tuesday expressed serious concerns about the risk of an escalation in the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah, warning that not only would it cause even more suffering and devastation to the people of Lebanon and Israel, but also more potentially catastrophic consequences for the region. And I think that is a reasonable concern, considering that there are very powerful neighbors. So this may not go very well. And as a matter of fact, despite their shows of force and declarations of unity, in the real world, the U.S. is readying to evacuate Americans from Lebanon if fighting between Israel and Hezbollah intensifies, which, as again, we can see from the war of words, it's most likely to do so. So U.S. officials are increasingly concerned Israel is going to carry out airstrikes and possible ground offensive in Lebanon in the coming weeks. So basically, the Pentagon is moving U.S. military assets closer to Israel and Lebanon to be ready to evacuate Americans as fighting between Israel and Hezbollah intensifies. And every time I see things like this, I think about the fact that I can't return to Israel until after 2025. So, and he told me that he had to purge some things. So this is really interesting as we walk this out. And as I mentioned earlier, a bit of a tip for tat going on. So now we've got Ukraine and Moldova launch EU membership talks. And so basically some of this is just a head fake, and it's just sort of like a public smack to say, well, if you're going to be nuzzling up to Iran, well, we're going to continue to nuzzle up to Ukraine. The European Union on Tuesday launched membership talks with Ukraine a decade after Russian troops seized the Crimea Peninsula to deter the country from moving closer to the West, part of a chain of events that set the two neighbors on the path to war. So, yeah, why not go ahead and continue poking the bear with the very thing that, as they just said, started this entire conflict? So pretty obvious that there's some folks that conflict is their agenda. And war is their agenda. It's not peace after the war. They're not interested in the peace after the war. They're just interested in the war. Okay, and this is on both sides, folks. So this is not a, you can't say it's an east or a west thing, because I see evidence that is being planned from both directions. Russian ambassador outlines plan to overthrow the U.S.-led world order. So you see the thinking that's going on the other side. They're like, these guys are done. They're toast. Their dollar's dying. Their systems are failing. They're going to go down. They're like the Titanic. We're just going to wait them out, and they're going to collapse under their own weight. And that's their thinking. But they're planning for what happens after the collapse. This is what's ominous, is that it's like, what do they know that you don't know? Well, we know, but I mean, the average person, it's going to collapse. Okay. This thing is going down. Russian top diplomats in the United States outlined in Newsweek the contents and core tenets of the Kremlin's bid to reshape the global order in a way that undermines Washington's international influence, which has already happened. It's not happening. It happened already. Now, we already see so many more countries now aligning with BRICS. They are already seeing the direction the wind is blowing, and they're moving in that direction. And I think a lot of things are being done to scare the people that will remain. So in other words, there's going to be some purging, but there are those that are going to want to get on board with the next thing that they want to promote, because they're all in on this, guys. Remember, it's two wings of the same bird. And now we're seeing World War III on brink, as Russia advised to demonstrate, look at this now, demonstrate nuclear explosion to, quote, scare the West. So that tells you right there that some of this is just mind control. Okay. And yes, I am aware that some assemblies and gatherings are embracing that which is an abomination, which tells you what they are. So he says that, basically we need to understand that this is going to continue to escalate because it has to. And this is why he said wars and rumors of wars, right? Not just the wars themselves, but he knew that they would get the rumor mill going, right? To get everybody like this, freaked out and panicked, because they like you panicked. You lose your kids when you're panicked. You make all kinds of mistakes when you're panicked. You burn your house down when you're panicked. All kinds of things happen when you panic. Okay. And they take advantage of that. Oh, they're there. Like, they care about you, right? U.S. military bases in Europe are on high alert over possible terrorist threats. So they're preparing for attacks in Europe. Several U.S. military bases in Europe were put on high alert this past weekend. You don't put a base on high alert unless you expect to be attacked over possible terror attack in the region that could target American personnel, according to the multiple reports. The alert is the second highest state of alarm issued in the U.S. Army. An American official at one of the bases said that he hadn't witnessed that level in at least a decade. So we are definitely seeing some unprecedented levels of not only conflict, but conflict preparedness. And so anybody that thought we were, going to just waltz back to status quo, I think we're all realizing that we're not in Kansas anymore. The status quo is long behind us. We've sailed into some very choppy water, and it's about to get stormy and crazy. So again, status quo is way behind us. We are moving into a new era. And one of the things that they're doing is still coming for the food, right? So this is one of the slow moving train wrecks we've been watching has been the way in which they continue to undermine your confidence in the food chain. And then at the same time, so on the one hand, they're basically trying to get you to lose your confidence in the food quality itself, right? On the other hand, they're attacking the farmers with this stuff. This is coming out of Denmark, and they try these things in different countries to watch public reaction before they expand it. So that's why you see things in, well, wherever they have control, like New Zealand or Australia or Denmark, they're going to do things that they want to run it up the flagpole. Look at this: grassy cows and pigs to be hit by carbon tax in Denmark in world's first. They want to reduce greenhouse emissions. So they're not going to worry about the burning tires. They're not worried about any of the things that are going on in third world countries. They're going to punish these people for their cows. If you can't see through that, then I don't know how to help you. Okay, this is some crazy things that we're watching. And I do believe that this is essentially another form of attack, but a different direction of attack on the same group. So farmers, food producers, the agricultural area of every nation seems to be really under fire, and it really encourages us as people to make prep, just like they're making preparation for the post-Western world. We need to make preparation for the post-grocery store world. Some of you are already there, but there's a reason why they continue to put that fear in, because they want to basically dismantle this. So they're dismantling this using psychological warfare at this point, and we've watched this slowly stoke up. U.S. to test dairy products, including ice cream and butter, for H5N1 bird flu virus, which, again, has not been isolated in any lab that I'm aware of. So how could they compare it to know whether it is? I mean, this is all manipulated. The FDA will survey 155 products sold in stores across America to check for the highly pathogenic strain of avian influenza. Folks, they're just coming for the food supply, plain and simple. You can couch this any way you want. You can use whatever justifications you want. They're shutting down big food one piece at a time. It's dying by a death of 1,000 cuts, and it doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon. They continue to run this same kind of thing, and so that's why you're going to see these types of headlines. In my opinion, you're going to see them because they want to undermine every one of these verticals. Okay, so ice cream products recalled after listeria now is revealed in testing. The nearly 70 recall products include Friendly's and Hershey's ice cream cakes. Wow. Okay, some of the most popular brands, nearly 70 ice cream products sold nationwide, are being recalled over concerns that they may be contaminated with listeria. And so now you're going to start to see this more often. You're going to see more recalls, because what happens when you recall something? First of all, it gives you the high ground. So you look so like on the ball, because while you're recalling anything, you're testing and checking, and you look great while you're doing your job, right? On the other hand, you're putting fear into the population about that product type. So it's an interesting maneuver, and we're going to continue to see it. And again, it's going to be things that are like staples, things you do all the time. But I mean, you don't have to worry. I mean, they're not going to do anything like coffee or anything, right? I mean, they wouldn't do anything like you drink every day, would they? Oh, wow. Coffee recalled nationwide due to risk of fatal food poisoning. Yeah. Nearly 300 types of canned coffee. How many types? Nearly 300 types of canned coffee distributed nationwide are being recalled over botulism. Let's go back to this headline, this previous headline, okay? Nearly 70 ice cream products sold nationwide. Nearly 300 types of canned coffee distributed nationwide. One more time. Nearly 70 ice cream products sold nationwide. Anybody think they're got like writers are joining together? Look at this. They're saying the same things over and over, right? This is narrative development. So they're continuing to push the point that it's nationwide. It's not local. It's not one area or another. It's nationwide. It's nationwide. Did you catch that? Nationwide. All right. So get it. Get clear. Understand the threat matrix, the threat situation. They want you to know that coffee is being recalled. 300 brands, okay? And a Wisconsin-based company, a voluntary recalling the canned coffee after learning the manufacturing process could lead to the potential of deadly food poisoning. And so a recall alert says, I'm thinking, are they going to recall hot dogs next? No, just kidding. Oh, let's not talk about that. How about salami? They're going to start recalling that for all the things. Never mind. Let's not talk about that. The canned coffee was distributed nationwide through various coffee roasters and retail locations, as well as through direct online purchases from Snapchill. And so, again, not that these things aren't serious things, right? So if there is a problem with food, you want it recalled. If there's a problem with anything in our supply line, we want it corrected. It's just so coincidental, that yeah, that this is happening, all at the same time, and manifesting in the way that it is. It's just very coincidental. So that's what makes us go, things that make you go, Okay. And we continue to see this narrative building everywhere we look. So back to that same part of the world, we see Finland becomes the first country in the world to start. Look at that. Look what they're already ready to do. Well, what do you know? Isn't that coincidental? What a coinkydink, huh? All ready to go. Pokeroo, jabadoo, jab a little jab'll do ya. Finland plans to offer preemptive jabaroos as soon as next week to some workers with exposure to animals, according to health authorities. Well, we're just all ready to protect the public. We're just all ready to preserve your life. We just love you all so much. I just want you to know that, okay? They don't want you to come under control. They don't want you to catch any of these things. So isn't it wonderful that they are preparing for that? I think that's fantastic. And here's another thing. If you're not scared of those things, you're not scared yet? Oh, okay. We got more for you. CDC wants you to know that there's dengue fever, and it's a risk in the U.S. Now, mind you that this is an annual risk, and dengue fever and any insect-borne diseases they're nothing new, right? But for some reason, Brazil had a serious outbreak, and now they're warning. And I wondered about that when we saw it break out in Brazil, guys. And I was like, were they testing there? And now it's coming here. I don't know. Looking a little suspicious, don't you think? CDC warns of increased dengue fever risk in the U.S. Warning comes amid record-breaking global incidents of mosquito-borne viral disease. So we also know that they did some experiments with this thing, and they had some artificial ones of these things, right? So we know that. But it doesn't mean that there isn't an actual problem. So if you are in a mosquito-filled area, you need to know about this. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention warned clinicians, health authorities, and public Tuesday about an increased risk for dengue fever virus infections in the United States. And based on the way that things went in, again, Brazil, a lot of people died. So it is not a light matter. It's a serious thing. But nevertheless, it's just kind of interesting that we're seeing this right now. And the CDC is issuing, fever alerts. And, they're saying there's hundreds of cases now confirmed in Florida. Florida has the most reported cases in the continental U.S., with the most of those cases in Miami-Dade County and Palm Beach County. So if you're down in the southern part of Florida, that is a factor. Health officials issued a warning on Tuesday, alerting authorities, healthcare providers, and the public of increased risk of dengue fever infections in the U.S. And of course, again, being aware may make your choices a little bit different. Maybe some outdoor activity you might pass on. So, but just understand that it is coming from various directions at the same time, which speaks to me of judgments coming from varying directions at the same time. Like the stranger in your midst is going up while the inhabitant of the land is going down, part of the curse described in Deuteronomy. So again, serious things changing on our landscape. Talking about changing, maybe some of these things are a distraction, so you're not really paying too much attention to what just happened here. But I was pretty certain that the reason why the leader of the American government in the executive branch was called a president was so that he would not have the powers of a king. And look at this dissenting opinion written as a result of the ruling that just came down today concerning immunity. And I kind of knew that they were going to have to do that, because if they didn't give immunity, then that would throw previous presidents immediately under the bus. Okay. So the president is now king above the law, Sotomayor says. She fears for democracy. We're not a democracy, we're a republic. For democracy and scathing dissent to Trump immunity decision. And the Supreme Court rules 6-3 to grant presidents absolute immunity for all official acts as president to the exclusion of private acts. Dissenting were 3 liberal judges, and you can see them there, who tore into, of course, and were very upset about that. They didn't want to give that immunity, and I don't think they were thinking about who it would impact. But I believe this was a massive, massive chess move that they had to really think about, because if they went the other way, it opened the door for serious prosecutions. So it is a bit theatrical, but the bottom line is that was the right direction to go. Although the dissenting opinion isn't incorrect, you now have recognized, and I think they were already always there, but now it's sort of out in the open how much power is in that office. So that's an interesting thing that now is coming out. And we see kings in the scripture in the book of Revelation. And so that's an interesting designation in the last days. And of course, China is watching this mockery of debates and nonsense, and they are just laughing at the West. They called the latest debates very entertaining. Chinese commentators mocked the first presidential debate between President Joe Biden and Donald Trump, pointing out the president's repeated verbal stumbles and questions over the truthfulness of his rival. And so, we're seeing the international community beginning to react. Biden was widely seen as the loser of the debate, with his voice sounding hoarse and sometimes appearing to go off track in his remarks. His performance was criticized by both Republicans and Democrats in America. This is unprecedented, folks. And I think that's why it is important to make note of this. What we're seeing here politically is earthquake level devastation. So we're due for probably some major change up. Something big is going to shake up the program, because they're trying to bring a broke ship into port and still win a race. And I think it's pretty obvious that that's not going to happen unless you got a couple of tricks up your sleeve. That isn't going to happen, right? So they got some serious issues. And what they're starting to do already, whenever we saw this before in the run up to 2020, and I think we're going to see it now as well. So folks, stand by if you are experiencing some censorship, if you're getting picked on, maybe you're being shadow banned. Some of you are content producers yourselves, and you might not be getting the reach that you used to get. I do believe that there's going to be an effort to limit voices as much as possible, and they're already working on how to do that, because they can't control the voices, so all they can do is control the reach, control how far your message might travel. And one of the biggest threats, especially in this election year, has been Tucker Carlson. So he's emblematic. He's basically a symbol of what they plan on doing, I think, to others. And Instagram is urging users to reconsider following Tucker Carlson in what is called here an insane warning. They apparently don't want users to follow Tucker, who apparently has quite a few followers. So he has over 3.7 million followers on Instagram, and on X he has nearly 13 million. And his broadcasts go out to sometimes 100 million people, while his following on X is likely far more significant because it is ostensibly less censorious platform where Carlson routinely uploads episodes of his new show, right? So what are they doing? They're getting ready for controlling narratives. This is a bad sign. That to me is like hearing thunder and it's going to rain, right? When you see this heavy-handedness or any kind of manipulation, it says to me there's events coming that they want to control the narrative of. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a bunch of channels canceled and, a lot more persecution ramping up to the fall feast, ramping up into the election. So we can't take anything for granted. We're grateful we get together every time we do. We don't know if it'll be the last time, but we We don't know, you know, and a lot of things are changing here in the West. Again, that judgment continues to manifest in some very stark ways. I told you about that farmer down in Florida. When he grabbed his ground, it wasn't just no grass. It wasn't just a low grass. It was dirt. So something's really seriously going wrong. He was blaming it on the sun. I don't know. I'd love your thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, because there definitely is something happening here. And we see the entire state of Virginia is under a drought warning as farmers predict first crop failure in 10 years. Scientists warn Americans could run out of groundwater by 2050. That's a whole nother issue. If it's not even contaminated. While much of the U.S. is in the midst of a scorching heat wave, there's one state experiencing a widespread drought. Every county in Virginia is either under drought watch or has been issued a warning for prepare for drier than normal conditions. And so they're losing. They're declaring crop failure. And there are going to be crop failures down here this year, and it's something we haven't seen in 8 to 10 years. So, putting more pressure on an already squeaking under the pressure food system that's seen a lot of food product removed from the chain. What is that likely to do to the remaining food product and the prices thereof, which we've already seen quadruple in just for 3 years? So again, the natural manifestations of judgment continue on the West. And so things that were warned are now manifesting in like serious levels, man. And here we have another thing. You've got this Hurricane Beryl. Some of you have been watching this. This is potentially going to be devastating inside of the Caribbean and coming up into the coast or into the Gulf of Mexico. So right now, as of now, it is just sitting outside of the Caribbean Sea, and it is tracking to come in and potentially make landfall somewhere in the Gulf. So they're potentially talking about it hitting parts of Texas. They were talking about the Houston area. It could turn and hit, you know, it could go anywhere. And this thing is a significant, I mean, it was 175 mile an hour storm. So those warnings that they issued about 2 months ago, if you guys remember, we read about that going, well, they're letting us know it's going to be a busier than normal hurricane season. And sure enough, we're starting off with a doozy at 170. It was like 150 knots gusting, which is like 172 miles an hour of wind. And that's serious wind, folks. That'll knock buildings right down. So it's no joke. And it looks like there's more forming out in the Atlantic. So it's going to continue through the summer. And there's some odd things that are happening in the land as well that we really don't have an explanation for. Now, have you guys heard about this? I don't know if you guys are aware of this. This is kind of an odd thing that I've heard about a couple of times. Then it kind of drops out of the news and it disappears. And then it pops up again. And pardon the pun, but it is something that pops up. So the stories pop up, just like the thing pops up. This mysterious monolith reportedly pops up on a Colorado dairy farm. Of all types of farms for it to land on, a dairy farm. Days after mysterious monolith found near Las Vegas was removed, so that one disappeared, another was discovered in northern Colorado. Okay? And so you guys can take a look at that on Remnant Watch. It's very interesting. I think it's kind of, again, a different form of messing with the people's heads, right? So every which way that the average person could be kind of jostled, they're being jostled out there. So we have to be very compassionate, because I do believe there's a lot of folks that don't know what to make of what they're seeing, and either trying to just completely disconnect, in which case, you know, they're just disconnecting from reality. But a lot of them are just going to be groping for answers. And as I've warned you before, many of them are going to be dealing with poltergeist activity supernatural activity, Nephilim activity, fallen angel activity, and their rebuker isn't going to work. So this is why we need to continue to pray that people come out of all falsehood, come out of all lies, come out of anything that is not of Elohim, so that they would be protected in this time, because he's not going to confirm falsehood. And the worst time to find that out is in a fight, right? And speaking of fight, I tell you what, economically, it's looking really bad out there. I saw this story. I had to share it because I don't think anybody doesn't relate to this. So this Six Flags visitor was stunned by the cost of a single slice of plain cheese pizza. And he went on TikTok to share about it because the price was $17. Can you believe this, guys? For a slice of pizza. Not a whole pizza pie, okay, guys? Not half a pie. For one slice, $17. Okay? That's what's going on out there, and that's an amusement park or whatever. So they're always a little bit ridiculous, but I think that has to be like, I just can't even imagine. I just can't even imagine if that. And again, we're seeing the just absolute devastation of the dollar, And so, yeah, you got to pay $20 for a slice of pizza with a drink. $20, you get a slice of pizza. When I was a kid, a slice of pizza was a quarter. Okay, 25 cents for a slice of pizza. So we've come a long way from those days, and I do believe that. Unfortunately, I don't believe the West is prepared for what most of the rest of the world has lived with for decades and a long time. And food scarcity is a reality. Look what we read about those in Gaza, that 20% are not even eating all day. So it's getting bad. And the persecution level is going to increase. So 1999, we went around the country and warned in 40 cities, prepare for the coming persecution. You'll find a talk with that exact title on our channel. And we're going to continue to see increased persecution, guys. So if you're not, with your brethren, if you're out there alone, it's just like any other situation. There's strength in numbers. And so if you're by yourself, you're more open game. And unfortunately, Iran is not improving its reputation at all. It just sentenced Christian converts to more than 25 years in prison, according to FaithWire. 5 converts to Christianity have been sentenced by the Iranian judiciary to a collective of more than 25 years in prison, according to a report from Iran International. So the persecution level out there continues to increase. I do believe that you're seeing a clash of fact checkers and information checkers and truthers online, which is causing greater pushback and backlash. So when you find out that you've believed a lie or you went the wrong way, there's 2 things you can do. You can repent, which some humble-hearted people do, and they go, wow, I was misled. I need to repent. But a lot of people do the Cain. They double down on what they believe, regardless of what they hear, even if they hear it from Elohim himself. Okay? So they will still double down, just like Cain did. They don't even care that it was Elohim himself telling them. And that just goes to show you that some people can hear from him directly, and they'll still go do what they want to do. Okay? Remember that it's him that gives the strong delusion. So keep that in mind as you go forward. And we're going to continue to see more and more of this kind of persecution, and it's going to increase as people figure out reality. And the remnant, those of you that are out there boldly declaring the truth, well, you become an easy target. They can blame you for everything going wrong. Okay, and that's what a lot of what Messiah warned us about, that brother would turn against brother, and that there would be a persecution in the last days, along with famine, along with pestilence, along with earthquakes, along with wars and rumors of wars, and many, many sorrows, so great that there would be no flesh saved unless he intervenes. And another thing that we saw that he warned us about was the rise of technology such that the beast would be given power to speak, right? Well, we don't even know. We went right by that because we're in this world where we're seeing it, where they're melding together with technology, where they're embracing that departure from a pure vessel, or as it's described in the scripture, perfect in generations. They're willing to abandon that, coincidentally, which we saw before the flood, the exact same thing, the abandonment of the genetic purity and willingness to basically commingle with anything and everything. So none of this is new. There is nothing new under the sun, including all the technology you see, folks. Not the first time there's been mass communication on Earth. And so this is resurfacing for the last days so that it can be wrapped up. And I do believe that we're coming in to see serious, serious change in this hour. But in the meantime, we're seeing the stoke up, right? So this has to come to a head. Take a look at this, guys. This is up in Minnesota, my old stomping grounds. Mall of America introduces new facial recognition security system. Mall of America officials announced Wednesday they will be incorporating a new facial recognition technology in its security system for lawful purposes, of course. So first we have to have a bunch of hoodlums go in and mess the place up. Do some crimes, do some bad things, do naughty, be naughty, problem, reaction, solution, right? So how many know this was always their plan? But they needed the bad stuff first. So they had that. Now they come with the plan. It would probably be good. It's also kind of an invasion of privacy, but we're going to get over that because, well, bad things have happened. Okay. And so when shoppers walk through the doors, they're a step away from a facial scan. Okay. And so now you know that you're going to be scanned as you walk in. Well, the obvious benefit of that, guys, is anybody that's up to nefarious no good now knows that, he's going to be captured and your face is going to be captured and what have you. That's great. Right. So that's how they sell it. They sell it as this is positive, it's secure, what have you. But it's one more piece of data that they get to know everything about you. So while they're pretending that they're really looking out for bad guys, who are they watching the rest of the time? Every once in a while, they catch a bad guy. The rest of the time, they're watching you, folks. So this is exactly what we knew would occur. And eventually you will not be able to buy nor sell except that you have their mark, right? So we know that is the inevitable plan because that's what's prophesied. Can't get around it. It has to occur. So who's shocked? Anybody? Anybody surprised that we're walking right to this? Of course not. It's another form of it. We saw the same thing, a similar type of system introduced with Amazon stores and with Whole Foods, where you could pay with your palm. Okay. So what are they doing? They're basically normalizing this tech, which, by the way, is so electricity dependent with no backup systems in any of these retail locations, right? So that means everything goes down if there's a grid failure, which is this 800-pound gorilla in the room that very few people are paying attention to. But it's reality. They have the power switch. So if everyone's on electronic, everything, there's nothing analog, there's nothing, everything's digital. Do you understand how much easier it is to shut down entire regions to where you don't have to restrict their travel. They can't buy gas. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to put them in any kind of restriction. They can't travel because there's no way for them to, right? And this is reality. That's what I believe. We need to be a much more sober and vigilant people going forward, because our adversary walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. And if you think this is just being normalized for adults, well, you're wrong. It's being normalized at the next generation, right? So this is, again, indicating their full-on agenda. I mean, when they're doing this, They're telling you where they're going and what their expectation is if you're going to continue to participate in their society. You can see why the Amish went and said, we're done. Well, here's another generation of the Amish that are going to be going, we're done. Watch, because of the things like this. Another reason for you to reconsider this program. Wake schools want students to scan a barcode to ride the school bus. The proposal would go into effect next school year, first on yellow general educational buses. Officials told the school board facilities and operations committee on Tuesday. They want you to scan your child. You see that? They're going to get the child used to the scanning system, would help the system more quickly communicate with parents who may be wondering where their children are. So this is how you sell it. You sell it as a convenience. You sell it as a security. You sell it as a benefit. You sell it as something that's going to save a life or preserve in some way. But we don't look at its positive utilizations. We look at all potential utilizations, right? So this is not something that we are going to take, lightly. This is something that we're going to pay close to attention to. Now, this next story takes it over the top. Okay. I don't even know what to say. I'm just going to tell you what they're doing here. Your hologram doctor can see you now. I am not even kidding. You want to talk about transhumanism. A patient walks into a hospital room, sits down, and starts talking to a doctor, only in this case, the doctor is a hologram. It might sound like science fiction, but it's reality for some patients at Crescent Regional Hospital in Lancaster, Texas. They going big in Texas. In May, the hospital group began offering patients the ability to see their doctor remotely as a hologram through a partnership with HoloConnects, a digital technology firm based in the Netherlands. Okay, so bottom line is that now they're able to make you adjust to where you're comfortable interacting, speaking content. I mean, this is as intimate a content as you can share, right, guys? I mean, think about it. You're sharing your medical information with a hologram. You're sharing your private, like, I mean, it's kind of embarrassing enough, you know what I mean, to go talk to like a man, a doctor, or a woman, a nurse or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, to talk to actual people is what I mean. There can be female doctors too. I'm not inferring that. I'm just saying it's a challenge just to even talk to them, right? Just to even go to a doctor and tell them like your stuff. Now you're talking to a hologram. Now you're talking to a computer. What? Star Trek called and wants its medical system back. Like, whoa, how did we get here? When did we move into this time period? Okay. And actually what's really, really crazy is they were talking about the accuracy level of the diagnostics of the AI doctors. And they were saying that they were actually as or more accurate than the natural doctor. So is that and it kind of makes you wonder, so are the real doctors tanking, or are the AIs just that much better at detecting like the small things? And I do think there's a place for it, right? I think there's a value in having a very fast thinking system that can look at different potential situations or maybe take something into consideration. I mean, there's been positive results from that. The problem is that you see this slow creep, right? So you see this little by little getting you used to interacting with technology, even at the most intimate levels, or in your infant or young years, rather, not infant, but young years. And in intimate places, they're introducing it so that it is no longer considered an intrusion or an invasion of your privacy or what have you. Meanwhile, you have no idea who's on the other side of any of this technology. So you're making this presumption that, and I mean, you being the general public, that the public is making the presumption that there's some type of governance or regulation or protections that are afforded. And in reality, that's just not true. So folks, where we're walking right now is dangerous territory. We're seeing Israel about to go to war. We're watching more and more conflicts going in the European theater. Europe is moving to the right, so the desperate guys on the left are running out of time. The same is the case here in the United States, which is also moving to the right, which means those in the left who are going to be vacating positions of power are going to be doing their level best to do whatever they can before they have no authority or power left. I mean, it's just common sense. So from here till another 7-8 months, this next 7-8 month window is probably very dangerous for all kinds of different things. And I think that's why military bases in Europe are on high alert, and it's probably wise for you to be on high alert as well, because after all, we the public tend to be the ones that end up being victimized in the crossfire of these conflicts, right? So we see these brewing, and a lot of them happen on Shabbats too, by the way, guys. So just a word to the wise: keep that Sabbath and go be resting, so you're not out and about where your enemy has an opportunity. Well, that's it for tonight. I pray that this broadcast has been an encouragement to you. I'm really grateful that we were able to get through it. I was actually a little bit concerned considering the amount of thunder and lightning that we had, because sometimes that can interfere, but Elohim saw us through, and so we're very grateful to him for that, and thankful for every one of you who stand with this house. If you are part of Remnant House and have supported this work, well, we're thankful for you. We always need your help in this type of thing, and you'll notice that there's nothing on Remnant Watch or any of our sites that are distractions and ads, and we don't merchandise the people. So thank you, members. Thank you, those who are standing with this house and make these broadcasts possible. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. May Elohim Baruch each and every one of you. Good night.